Hello, this is Moed El Hoderi, and today we're going to be talking about El Nino and La Nina. So, what is El Nino and La Nina? So, this is a cycle that usually happens in the Pacific Ocean. It has great significance to climate, rainfall, and all other types of precipitation. So, to understand El Nino, La Nina, we're going to be using these tools. Let's look at it from a normal situation, from normal conditions, before we dive deep into it. So, as we see here, the red lines, the red arrows, I should say, these symbolize the southeastern trade winds. These winds usually blow from east to west. And just before we start, over here we have the equator. We got North America over here. We got South America over here. We got Australia, and we got New Guinea. As these trade winds move more easterly, it creates, due to low pressure system, lots of rainfall, lots of precipitation, and pretty much all types of precipitation because of the low pressure system. As that happens, it pretty much creates a cycle called the Walker circulation cell. And what eventually we have here is that with these trade winds and with the ocean currents that are also going in that direction, what they do to the bottom, we'll say from the warm water over here, as we see, what happens, it kind of tips over, as you guys can see it from this diagram. What that does is it pushes the water away from South America, and the ocean surface currents are pushing eastwardly, taking the warm water to Australia and New Guinea. And because of the warm water going into one direction, the cold water from the bottom, as we see, starts to go upwards into this direction. So where South America is and where North America is. So here we have the warm water, we got thermocline, and we got cold water. So thermocline is pretty much a big change from warm water to cold water. So 0 degrees pretty much. So here we have warm water on the left side, and we got cold water all on the right side. And so once that happens, then the circulation cell pretty much starts to weaken because there's less and less and less trade winds, and there's less ocean currents moving to that direction. So pretty much this cycle pretty much collapses, having the warm body on the left side and the cold water body on the right side. And that's what we have in El Nino. When we look at it, what happens is that after this cycle is pretty much broken down, as you can see, it's kind of getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And then what happens now is that since there's no barrier to stop the warm water from going into the direction of Australia, it'll start to slush pretty much back to where it came from. And what it does, as we see here, the warm water becomes more even and even until pretty much it tips the scales. So now we have warm water over here on the Australia side, and then we got water here, warm water in North America, and we'll say in Peru or somewhere there in South America. And now what it does is also it creates pretty much another circulation cell, or atmospheric pressure switch, south oscillation, as it says here. What it does is pretty much the opposite of the process, where now everything's fully reversed. Trade winds are going from the opposite direction, currents are going from the opposite direction, creating pretty much another circulation Walker effect. So as that happens, we'll see actually in here, in another tab right here, what pretty much happens to the cycle. So here we see in this tab how the water is moving in this condition, and this is pretty much El Nino. And that's how the water flow goes from cold and warm body. So I'll look at it again. That's pretty much what happens in El Nino. And we'll continue on to El Nino. So now we're going to be looking at the La Nina conditions. And what this is pretty much, it's an intensification of the upwelling of cold water into the bodies, we'll say, of South America, over here, and America. And we'll look at it in this slide right here. So as we see, we got the Walker circulation cell and everything like that. And as we see, what happens is that it continues and continues until there's so much wind, so much current, that it causes the water to upwell. The upwelling increases pretty much. So as we see here, what happens, the cold region of South America and the cold region over here of North America is going to increase, and making this region very, very cold and very, very warm over here. And it pretty much tips the scales upside down. And we have warm water over here, thermocline, cold, and as we can see, it's pretty much 50% right here. So there's so much warm water over here, so if there's lots of water over there and lots of rainfall, then it's probably going to be lots of storms, lots of typhoon, lots of tsunamis, lots of things like that over in Indonesia, over in New Guinea, and over here in Australia. This cycle pretty much oscillates back and forth anywhere from up to 2 to 8 years, and that's pretty much El Nino and La Nina.